Hey everybody, this is Brian Aiello. On episode number 43 of Origin Stories on Creativity, I spoke with Christine Larsen. She's a Harvey Award nominated cartoonist. She's a illustrator. She's created art for comic books, book covers, stories, posters, websites. She's worked with clients like Dark Horse, IDW, Boom Studios, DC Online, Simon & Schuster, and Cartoon Network. She's also an adjunct instructor at the University of Arts and the Delaware College of Art and Design. She teaches courses in sequential art and comics. The real question is why she decided to have a conversation with me. I mean, we dig too deep, we might find an answer. But what do they say? Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. And we're not going to look this one in the mouth either. This conversation was absolutely brilliant. I had so much fun from beginning to end. I mean, there's not one thing I love more in this world than geeking out with a fellow geek. And that's exactly what we did from the get-go. We basically enjoyed nothing but geektastic conversation. And Christine Larsen is the number one geek ever. She's a genius artist. I really enjoy her work. All the links in the show notes are going to be about what we discuss. Hopefully, you'll be able to follow the breadcrumbs and land in some pretty significant, wonderful places. Highly recommend, follow them back, check out her work, pay her lots of money to draw your covers, pay whoever hires her to do her art lots of money so she can continue to do art. And people like her because, honestly, the world needs artists like this and people she trains and people she knows. You know, there's a lot of talented people out there. There's a lot of talented people in this world, and they all need to continue doing what they're doing. So, yeah, with no further ado, and of course, like I said, check out the show notes for more information about her work and things that she recommends you check out. But let's get into this. Christine Larsen.
I went to the University of Arts, which is actually, I teach there now.
Philadelphia, okay.
Which is I actually teach there now. It's an accredited university it's an art school. It's basically an art school, but they're accredited. And I went there. It's a 4-year school, but art school is weird. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to go to art school and become a good artist. And it's not really what that is. It's a good place to sort of expand your knowledge base, but it's also not like a technical school either. You kind of got to work all that shit out on your own.
Well, how about this? Tell me what you would do. Let's say I'm a senior in high school, and I want to go art school, and I've earmarked your university or your school as a place I want to go. What do I do as an incoming freshman?
So,
and then on.
Well, but that depends. Do you know what field you want to go into? Do you want to do illustration, graphic design, animation? Like, do you know what you want to do?
Well, what are there? I mean, I'm a writer, so I guess you would.
They have a writing for film and television program. Like they also
is that like screenplays?
Yeah. They do screenplays. They have creative writing classes, everything like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it actually combined the College of Art and Design and I think a writing college and a couple other things, and that's how the university formed.
Would somebody like myself going in for like writing for film, would you also write for comic books too, or because they could kind of meld the mediums, wouldn't they? Be able to do that?
They have a comic writing class.
That's fantastic.
Teaches. I always think that writing for film and writing for comics seems like it would be like a natural leap. And it really isn't, because you are talking about two different mediums. Comics aren't storyboards. You know what I'm saying? So you also have to think of comics in context of the page, in context of the spread. There's, like people reading a book, there's that sort of the contract between the artist and the audience where, like, they're not skipping ahead. But remember, every time someone turns a page and looks at a page, they see the whole page. So if you give away a turn that you set up a turn, then that doesn't make any sense to do because they can see it already. Why have you know what I mean? So comics are page turns and they're page layouts and they're how the panels interact with each other. They're not just storyboards. That would be for someone who writes for film, thinking about writing for comics is also remember you're leaving the medium of film where you as, creating a film, you control the audience's viewing experience. Whereas comics are a lot more like books where people can skip ahead. They can see the whole page laid out before them. You have to remember how the medium presents itself to the viewer.
The interesting part to me is that you're really not going to be showing that to an audience other than the professional that's going to be drawing it. You know what I mean? In terms of the person that is your audience for a comic book writer, it's the artist himself. You know what I mean?
Well, no, not at all. Because remember, you're still writing for comics. Different comic writers write in a different style too. Some people let the artist do breakdowns. Some writers will do the breakdowns themselves in terms of how the pages lay out. So it's still that. You still have to consider that also. You still have to consider what is going on what page.
More of a collaborative art, though. You're never going to have an audience outside of that, typically. I mean, and even more, it's not going to be somebody who's not into comics necessarily. It's going to dig deep enough to find your work.
Well, no one's going to see your script, but writers are still credited on comics, and there are definitely who follow comic writers that, like Grant Morrison or Alan Moore. All those guys are old
geniuses in their field.
Well, that's
well, crazy in their field. Depends who you talk to.
They're great writers. It's always I think taste too. Like I'm not a huge Alan Moore fan. I think he's a good writer. I just don't really like the stories. You know what I mean? Like, that's, I guess, the difference.
Who are you a comic fan? Do you like comic books? Do we call them comic books nowadays?
I draw comics, so I hope I like them. Yes, I do like.
So who would I say? Who are your favorite writers? Who would I want to look to for inspiration if I was going to impress you?
I guess
with my list of favorite writers.
I read a lot of cartoonist books. So in that case, you're talking about the artist as the writer. Mm-hmm. Craig Thompson was like an old-time favorite of mine. The first comic I ever really got into when I was a kid was Tank Girl. So.
They ruined that by the movie, didn't they? With
that movie. That, by the way, when that movie came out, I was the perfect age for that movie. I was like a 13-year-old riot girl, and that movie came out, and that's how I found that comic. And I would have never cared about comics otherwise.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
because that movie was like the first opportunity to have a female protagonist comic book type situation happen too, wasn't it? It was like revolutionary in terms of what it was trying to do.
And I remember seeing it recently and thinking, wow, this movie is way better than it could have been. But it's also grandfathered in as this thing that I really enjoy. So
cult classic.
I'm sure you have like all those movies.
Oh my God, forget about it. When I was a kid, it was Superman. Supergirl was like one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid, and I don't think I can watch it now. I really don't.
No, there's actually a couple I won't go back and watch. But like there's some stuff you go back and you're like, yeah, this is still good. I still love this in my heart. You know what I mean? Like it's you could pick it apart, technically, but at the end of the day, it's like you're in there. You're one of my faves, whether you want.
Tank Girl is one of your faves. That's so cool. I honestly got corrupted by the critics before seeing that. My brother saw it and loved it, but I was also a really big fan of Laura Petty. I think that's who was in it.
Yeah, she was really cute in that. Man, Lori Petty was I think a good casting choice. It's just the movie's a mess. It really is. Like
unfortunate.
It's a mess, but it's a fun mess, and I still enjoy watching it. So,
but does that fit the other comic writers that you were talking about? That doesn't fit, does it? That's kind of the outlier there.
Well, I got into Tank Girl. Tank Girl came out in a magazine in the UK before Vertigo picked it up. and Hewlett Martin. What's that writer's first name? I'm so bad at remembering dude's
No, me
first
too.
name. I think
Forget about
it's
it.
Alan Martin. I think it's Alan Martin, or and it's Jamie Hewlett because he does all the Gorillaz artwork now. And
Gorillas.
Yeah, the band. And if I could find my, I'm staring at my bookshelf right now, where my other Tank Girl comics.
So do you consider yourself a comic writer also, or do you rely on a collaborative effort between yourself and other writers?
I do a lot of shorts. I do a lot of shorts for myself, and then I've done licensed work for like a Adventure Time comic and regular show comic. And then I've worked with other people. That's how I started working in comics. I like both processes. I mean, obviously, if you're working with a writer, it has to be someone you like. And when I do my own stuff, a lot of it is stuff that commercial. Like I'll self-publish it because I know it won't find a home anywhere because it's like these weird fantasy shorts that have no dialogue. And
yeah.
So, not everything is meant to be picked up by a huge publisher.
Nowadays, I mean, between indie publishing and being traditionally published, when you're a comic artist or a comic writer, you would think that being self-published, you would have more power over your own work anyway. In fact, if you become, powerful, being self-published gives you a lot more leverage, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's this one, Evan Dom, and I'll have to type out his name for you because I can't remember how to spell it.
If you think of something that you want me to see, or any of the listeners, send me notes. I definitely want to see stuff.
He does a comic called Vatu, and he did a comic called Rice Boy, and he self-publishes all his own stuff. You see him at all the cons. His artwork's super great. His stuff is like this crazy world-building fantasy stuff, with all these really interesting character designs. And really good character work too. I shouldn't downplay his character work is really good. And it's great stuff. And he's never taken that to a major publisher. He does everything soup to nuts. He just has that solid following. But to do that, you have to be doing it. It takes it could take a decade. It could take.
So, I mean, I was about to say, is it lightning in a bottle and something like that? Or is it a slow progression of marketing and just developing the audience? Or is it kind of, at 1 minute you're nobody and the next minute you've got this gigantic following that happened just virally overnight?
I think it's all of those. Any of those could happen, or none of those could happen, and you toil in obscurity till the day you die. You know what I mean?
I do. Unfortunately,
but I don't think there's a formula, and I think as long as the work you're doing is work that you believe in and would be doing anyway, I think that there's always going to be some audience for it. How broad that audience is debatable based on content, but in terms of, is there an audience? Yeah, man, it's the freaking internet. There's an audience for
dinosaur porn.
Yeah.
That's the thing I do all the time.
I'll be honest, there's probably a huge velociraptor porn audience out there that's just completely untapped.
No, it's tapped.
Oh, we've tapped that. Don't you worry.
5 years ago, I heard about that. I thought for sure that'd be
Is that Rule 36 or something like that?
Oh, yeah. I don't know what there's a rule. There is a rule geared specifically to that. If it's out there, somebody has a fetish for it.
Yeah.
I don't know what rule it is, though, unfortunately.
Yeah. I remember someone quoting that to me. So, yeah, I mean, I pull in my income from a bunch of different places. I teach 1 or 2 classes. I do regular illustration, too. I do the self-publishing thing, and I do the stories for larger publishers for license work. And who knows, maybe I'll put out a graphic novel one day when I finally get my shit together. But you can't just do one thing. You have to have your fingers in a ton of different pots. I think that's just how freelance works. If you're making your bones doing freelance, you need to it's the hustle. You're always hustling.
I think a lot of people would have a question of, where do you find these pots at, though? I mean, is it just stuff that you're interested in that you're saying, I'd like to stick my finger into that pot, or do you just, naturally find these individual things as you go along?
I have to say that how I find work has been fairly organic in terms of contact me and I'll do work with them, and I'll do my own work, and I'll send work out to folks that I'm interested in working in. That's, like my self-published stuff. I'll keep some of that aside and send it out to like editors and art directors that I'm interested in working with. Being like, hey, I'm alive. You want to look at my stuff? And even like clients I haven't heard from for a while, I'll like send postcards out once in a while. But a lot of times, like, I'll get work from people who just saw my stuff on like Twitter, or Instagram, or Facebook, or something like that.
Who really exactly on Twitter though? Are they the artists, or are they art directors?
I got contacted from Boom from when I used to have a Tumblr, and they saw my stuff on Tumblr. And then who saw me on Twitter. But when I got my first job illustrating something big at all, it was because I 4-page comic. It's the first comic I ever did, and with a bunch of other cartoonists from the Philly Cartoonist Society. And that book had made rounds, and it made rounds to the right person. And this is before like was ever a thing. You're talking 2004. So, and it made rounds to the right person. And then one of the editors at a company called Ape Entertainment saw it. So I did my first licensed property for this little project called Teddy Scares. And then I did the Shrek and Kung Fu Panda comics for them. Probably my first comic work out of school. So some of it's just like right place, right time.
What I find is interesting is that you've always got to you've got to pay attention to what's coming up on the horizon too. Mm-hmm. You're talking about 2004, where, obviously 2017 is 13 years away. How could you have, foresaw what we're doing now, which I don't even know what we're doing now, nor do I remember what we were doing in 2004. And then another 13 years from now, 2030, what were we going to be doing then? And, staying on top of it and then beating your competitors at the same time, because there are so many other people trying to, swamp you, pull you down so that you're not the one winning, or however that works.
I guess some of that is also, I never look at other cartoonists that way in terms of like competitors, my competition. Yeah, I think that I like to look at it more like a community. Like everyone I know whose work I really love, I love their work. It's different than my work. Like someone who's going to hire me isn't going to hire, another person that maybe is competing for a job with me, because our work is totally different. And I don't like to personally like illustrators and creatives like that, because I think it's a hard enough job as it is without like having trying to like cut you off at the knees. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And also, I don't know, I'm like friends with a lot of guys. Like I can't look at them like that. Like we're all pals, and it's like us versus the world, trying to make it like just plugging along, like hardworking little ants.
Doesn't this come from kind of more of a cutthroat environment? Maybe not now, but there was at one time you're an artist, I'm an artist, and we're going to go at it with broken bottles and shivs, and whoever's left standing is going to get the job type mentality.
No, I guess that existed. I think there's so many outlets now that, and some people are still like that. I don't like to think like that, especially because I teach. Like, I can't look at my students and think like, oh, you're the competition of the future. You're the competition of the future. Guess what? I'm napping for class, so you're not learning nothing. Like, I can't. That's like part of my job. And also,
I guess as a teacher, though, you get the opportunity to learn from them, too, because of the up-and-comers, you get to find out what the next 13 years is going to be like.
Well, yeah, and I think that my students help keep me from getting old.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
I'm not that old. I'm only in my 30s. Like, I'm not like some like old lady with a cane, but like from being like an old lady yelling at kids for playing their out loud music. Like, I don't ever want to be that old person. Like, I want to kind of help you keep on top of things. Definitely.
I was that old person at like 16, though. I hate loud music. So what are the kids saying nowadays about art, about mediums, about what they see, and what are they enjoying? Do they like comic books? They don't want to go into the dirty old shops, right? Do they want to flip the pages?
I'm in Philadelphia. I think when you're in a city, the atmosphere is different than maybe the suburbs or even the sticks in terms of like what the comic
I'm New York
shops are
City.
like.
I know what you mean. We
Yeah,
got
like in
comic
terms
books
of what
all
the
over the
comic
we got
shops are
top
like.
comic book shops all over the place, though. I mean, Midtown Comics is crazy. In the morning, there's a line.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like as far as I know, like all the shops I've been to in Philly, all the guys are really great. It never feels like, oh, you shouldn't be in here. And you
In
got a
terms of
really
being a woman, or in terms of being what?
young a woman or someone who's just new to it, or kids, like they're very, it's always been a welcoming environment as far as I've seen. I don't know like what anyone else's experience is, but I've always had a good experience with the
Mm-hmm.
comic shops in the city. um the kids like to go, everyone orders books online now anyway, I think. So it doesn't, I don't know how comic shops are doing generally. I think they're doing okay, but a lot of read like I got some kids who got me into a couple of web comics I wouldn't have found, because there's so many now. There's so many web
Yeah.
comics and they're all over the place. There's only probably a handful of like directories.
It's really difficult because I'm not to sidetrack you, because I tend to crosstalk left and right.
That's fine.
I find a lot of them on Reddit. Now, not a lot, but a few. And
Yeah.
I'm so disappointed that I just can't, spend my day just scrolling through and enjoying them one after another after another. I found you through Jason Abbott, and I'm looking through your Instagram going, I wish, I could scroll through all of her new stuff, find it immediately, not occasional emails that may or may not get buried in my inbox. Just know when you've got new stuff. It's just impossible because there's so many. I mean,
It's true. There's a lot of stuff online. I know for me personally, I have a pretty like a short list of stuff, but also when I read webcomics, because of the way they update like once or twice a week, I'll usually go once a month to the ones I visit. So like this month I'll visit these, and next month I'll visit those, and that way I can sit and like read a book as opposed to reading like 2 pages at a time. That's kind of exhausting. But yeah, I think
is there an industry agreement that things come out at a certain time, even for like indies, or no?
What do you mean, like webcomics or independent
just
comics?
Even independent, just you and everybody else. Do you agree like Tuesdays and Thursdays twice a month you publish?
No, it's for webcomics. I think like when I upload my webcomics, because they're all shorts, I just do the whole I just do it all online, all at once. Like I just dump in. It's whenever I do a mini. For people who have long-running webcomics, I think that people build their own schedules. I do feel like popular days. I see more Mondays and Fridays, which makes more sense to me because you have the weekend and then you have the whole week to work on a page. And I'm trying to think like what other days. Like I'll see like some comics just upload one day a week, and then people go on hiatuses and all that stuff. I think it depends on the schedule of the person updating. A lot of people who do web comics, that's something they do at night. You know what I mean? Like that's their it's like a side thing for them.
Yeah.
Not a mainstay for income. I mean, some people can get away with that, but for the most part, most web comics are it's like acts of passion.
What do you think the hardest part of your job is as a content creator? You obviously love the drawing, right? The developing, is it finding the audience?
That's the hard. I gotta think about that. I guess finding work. No, I always feel like I always find a job when I'm finishing another. The universe has been strange to me that way. Process-wise, I guess planning I always spend a long time on in terms of like layouts or thumbnails for illustrations, or always kind of rack my brain over in the design stuff, the pre-planned stage before I even start to draw anything. It's not necessarily hard, but I'm always trying to do something that doesn't feel generic. So that always
very interesting. That's very, because I want you as an artist, and I talked to a gentleman yesterday who also kind of fits that same kind of bill, and you guys are having very similar conversations with me in terms of it's very business oriented. You have to drum up clients, and you have to talk to art directors, and you're establishing client reputations and blah. I as a writer, it's like I need eyeballs. I want readers, and I want people to appreciate this. And as an indie, I want I have a list of things, and there's one thing on top of it, and that's just audience generation. I want people to download my novel. I want people to read my short fiction, and I want people to engage. But you're about getting the next project primarily.
Yes and no. One, getting the next project is paying my rent. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's important to get the next project because I am doing this full time. It's thinking the same way that this is a job. That trying to make X amount of money a month, and it doesn't really help me if I kind of sit on my ass and wait for it to come. But you still need to, especially for like my self-published ventures and even for like my independent stuff, that's not getting paid by a publisher. Or a magazine or whatever, whoever I'm working for, I still need to generate an audience, and I have a pretty loyal following. Normally, when I do a self-published book, I can get, and I do like maybe 1 or 2 a year. I'll definitely sell a few hundred copies, and then we'll get a couple more hundred digital downloads when I format. So. I always think it's good. You still need to build an audience. You still want people to be interested in your work, especially if you ever decide to do a series. You want folks to kind of know who you are so they can find you.
Yeah. I mean, a few hundred, that's really significant in terms of real good base numbers, right? I mean, you can grow that.
Yeah. No, and to be completely honest, I think because I do the work thing, I don't grow it as much as I could, but that's why I'm always posting on Instagram and stuff. If people are interested in your work in one arena, you kind of can nudge them into another arena. If people are like, oh, I love your sketchbook stuff on Instagram, it's like, oh, look, here's a sketch for a comic that's coming out. And, so you can cross-pollinate too. Never sure how much my numbers overlap.
What do you think about the current state of advertising in this world that we live in terms of people just turning their backs on it and just being repulsed by it? TV, internet, YouTube, everybody just hates it, ad blockers and things like that. And I guess I'm just assuming, because I don't think you've really mentioned it by name, but I would assume that you're looking for a lot of your business in the advertising market. Am I right or wrong?
Oh, in terms of my illustration business?
Your business, yeah.
No, most of my art is either narrative, or I've done like stuff for bands and posters and stuff. I have like commercial in terms of to sell, like commercial art. I don't do a ton of that stuff. I was doing some business to business work, which no general audience would have seen. It was all like, it was just like crappy little icon stuff and designing flyers and but in terms of ad blockers, but I know the people who do, I know on ads. And the ad blockers kind of kick their butts, but also ads have gotten really obnoxious. Like, you click on a link and like 7 windows pop up, and it's not like a little. it's a big difference between that and like a banner on the top of a page. Like, whatever, have a banner. But if like the JavaScript's going to like have a little box float across my screen, and I can't like catch it to X out. Like, that's
especially on your phone. Forget about it. It's horrible.
Yeah, that's like a pain in the ass. Like, so. I think, if you can stand it. I don't have any ad blocker software on my phone. I guess I should.
On my phone, I don't. Yeah, I don't know if there is any that actually exist, but on my computer,
I don't have any on my computer, especially because that's where I read a lot of webcomics, and I figure, oh, guys, just take my 2 cents for my visit. So I think if you can stand it, it's nice. Like when you go to visit your webcomics, to just turn it off for a minute and visit the comics you like to read online, and then turn it back on for YouTube.
You said you don't go to Reddit, but you go to an aggregate site for your webcomics, or was I just fantasizing?
What was it? It's there's a site called The Hive or the Beehive or something like that. Sometimes when I want to find something new, I'll hit up a couple of, there's like webcomic collectives where they'll have a bunch of them all together. If you Google it, that stuff will come up.
As far as
I always like
webcomic
stuff like,
Beehive?
yeah, I think it's like, I want to say it's The Hive or maybe it's the Beehive, but I've gone on there before and found stuff that I wouldn't have found on my own, just because that's a spot where they commission, or you submit your property to them. There's also a
HiveWorks?
browser.
Does that sound familiar?
HiveWorks, that's it. It's HiveWorks.
Is it? Okay.
It's in there somewhere. Yeah, they have like a little honeycomb as their logo.
Cool. This is awesome. I just find them so often, and then I lose them again. So cool.
Yeah, no, the HiveWorks is good. You have to actually submit. There's a submission process to HiveWorks. So that's like, normally people who are in there are people who have had their comic for a little while, had a good audience, and you submit to HiveWorks and they host it. So it's like a nice stuff that will update fairly regularly and is active.
I mean, this type of stuff is so cool to me. It's just that there are so many people doing it that I feel bad, but it really doesn't take very many.
You don't feel.
I feel bad because, I mean, it'll take a lifetime to read all of this work, but it really doesn't take a big audience to make them popular, right? Like 20,000 people following you, and you're popular. You can do this for the rest of your life, and you can put food on the table. You can pay your mortgage. You can put your kids through school.
I mean, I don't know what you define that as.
What do you mean?
I know. Well, popular in terms of like how much in revenue it brings in. Because I don't.
$1 a month from 20,000 people is pretty significant, right? Patreon, something like that.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, like Patreon and stuff. But to have a Patreon like that is like far and few between. Like you have a couple of guys making that money on Patreon, but usually it's just like usually you just have like a couple $100.
I don't know what the future is. I really don't. I don't know what the future is in terms of content creation. I think, we were just talking about what the last 13 years was and what the next 13 years is. And I'm looking at the cable companies, trying to kill net neutrality. They're so desperate to control the internet, and, we're trying to hold on to our individualities, and, it might be slipping through our fingers. It might not be. But all of these people are creating just fantastic content, right? This originality might be disappearing or not. I mean, there's some really awesome art here.
And something that I feel like the laws being passed are being passed real like under the table and very suspiciously. And I think that everyone should kind of keep an eyeball on it. It affects me a little less because I don't have a webcomic like this. Like, I'm not part of HiveWorks, or I'm not part of any kind of like, but like, is it apps? Do you go to apps? Like, or do we go to, I feel like there's going to be,
I think apps are controlled.
I'm worried.
You have to go to the App Store. You have to go to iTunes. I mean, that's like what I think net neutrality is trying to protect us from.
I feel like eventually we're going to have like 3 companies controlling the internet, just like we have like 3 companies controlling TV. Oh my God, are we going conspiracy theory? This is fun.
No. Do you like conspiracy theories? Are you a conspiracy theorist? Are you a conspiracy theorist?
Right now, because I enjoy. No, but I enjoy them. I enjoy folklore, and I kind of think of conspiracy theories as like modern folklore.
All right. Well, let me ask you, what's your favorite modern conspiracy theory?
I love the Coast to Coast AM.
I love that show too.
I love that stuff. Yeah, I'm back.
See, the conspiracy. Now that wasn't a conspiracy. We lost your audio for a second. The aliens. They don't want us to talk about Coast to Coast AM.
No, they know. They know. They have George Norrie.
They ruined our connection for a second. So, I mean, what is your favorite right now?
It's
Are
the
you
pyramids, man. It's all the pyramids.
It's all the pyramids' fault. They gathered together in Egypt just to ruin our conversation today. It's a 10,000-year-old conspiracy. Uh-oh. Yeah, I don't think
Let me
you're.
go inside. Maybe my connection got bad. Hold on.
Yeah, the brick wall might not
That's
be
all.
helping.
There we go. Well, I was right by my back door, but that doesn't mean anything. I don't know, man. It's supposed to reach all the way back to like our neighbor's house, but I don't think it does. All right.
Yes, you're not breaking up. Let me just write down.
Okay.
I'm actually timing this call so I can tell when the dead air is. So we're talking about conspiracy theories now. What is your favorite?
Yes, I like that. That's fun.
Which one? I'm sorry, you broke up again.
Where do you want to go? Maybe we should stop talking about conspiracy theories.
I know. They don't like it. Given the current situation
I'm
with our
right next to my I'm right next to my server right now, so you should be hearing me fine.
We'll just wait for it to catch up. Turn off. Can you turn off your camera? That might be what's affecting it.
I don't know if I can, but I'll try. If I disconnect this, I'm so sorry.
No, it's if you're.
Oh, hey! I think I found it. Camera.
There you go. I love this picture of you. Actually, this avatar.
Yeah,
might actually use it on your graphic.
my little drawing thing.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Now you don't have to look at my house, which I'm going to walk through.
I love your ceilings, though. The vaulted wood cathedral thing.
Oh, it's we rent, but our house is like turn of the century. It was built in like the 1910s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been kept up pretty good. We have really nice wood floors. They're really, really nice.
What part of Philadelphia do you live in? If you want to tell me, I guess it's getting a little bit too personal.
Well, no, I don't care. I don't know. I mean, no one's going to come to my house. I live in a part of North Philly called Port Richmond, which is between the L and the river. We're right next to Kensington. So
you know what's funny is I've only been to Philadelphia like once, like actually stopped in. So you telling me where you live is like you might as well be speaking a foreign language. Honestly, I've been to Benjamin Franklin's grave. I thought that was the coolest thing. I love Benjamin Franklin. He's like one of my personal heroes, right? So I put a quarter on his grave.
Yeah.
That's the coolest experience. And I've eaten a Philly, like a straight up authentic cheese whiz, and I love it. I just want to go back to Philly and eat another Philly.
Yeah. We're definitely a sandwich town.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we got sandwiches from like two other places and a cannoli, but I don't know. Cannoli's in Philadelphia. I'm not gonna ever do that again.
Oh, you got to go to the right spot because there's some really good spots in the Italian.
The right spot is Venero's in East Village, so that's not in Philadelphia. So I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's not do the New York Philly thing. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. It's not good. It's no good.
Yeah, you guys win on the sandwiches. There's no way I can't get that here. I talk to my wife all the time. I'm like, let's go to Philadelphia and get some sandwiches. She's like, no. But babe, we could stop off in Camden and do the aquarium. She loves aquariums.
The aquarium is great. They really did a lot to that waterfront. Like I've been living here since I started school in 2000, and Camden is just night and day what it was and is.
Good. That was like a nightmare for a little while.
I mean, it's still a nightmare, but it's like it's less Friday the 13th and more maybe, or less than like Nightmare on Elm Street and a little more Friday the 13th. They're not coming for you in your dreams, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and the world. I don't know where the bad guys have gone, but they've kind of disappeared a little bit.
Yeah. It's you know what? They're just starting to build up more spots. Like Philly's getting more expensive, and Camden, I think, is starting to come up a little bit. I don't know. I'm not there a ton. I'm sure people who live there would be like, this place is dump. But in terms of the waterfront, at least, they've done a lot of work there.
I mean, that's kind of a conspiracy theory talking about gentrification, and they're doing it in New York too,
Yeah.
trying to push people out.
What are you talking about? They've done it in New York already. You're done. You're done in New York. You can't touch
It's
New
still
York.
there in terms of like Harlem is not Harlem anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
if you get off the train at like 125th Street,
Mhm.
the flavor's a little bit there,
Mhm.
but the beginnings is happening, but you
As-
still have it kind of around. There's some
It's
holdouts.
like a strong neighborhood will usually try to maintain its identity, but it's like eventually what happens is houses go up and up and up and up and
Yeah.
up, and who can afford like $5,000 a month rent? Who
Nobody.
can do that? Nobody.
Nobody can. I mean, you
Like,
can if you're a banker. I mean, I guess
yeah,
that's
right.
the situation.
But that's the thing. Like no one can afford that, and a lot of times, I don't know. I think gentrification works, right? If you have like a totally dilapidated neighborhood, like you have like blocks and
That's
blocks
the
of just
funny thing to me
burn out
is that
empty
New York
buildings.
is a dilapidated neighborhood. The entire island and the Bronx and Queens and Brooklyn, it's all dilapidated. It's all ready to explode.
Yeah,
It's horrible. The infrastructure is disgusting. The train is like falling apart. They
yeah,
keep having to raise the price of like everything just to continue to patch little parts of it.
yeah.
When the hurricane rolled through, I mean, just everything flooded.
No,
The
I
whole
know.
city is ready to go
Yeah, no,
down the train like any second.
yeah. I have a bunch of friends up there, and I remember they like were posting pictures and stuff, and it was ridiculous.
I got a friend who lives in Inwood. I mean, Inwood's a really gorgeous neighborhood. It's in the
Yeah,
very northern tip of Manhattan. It's
right.
got a great park. You can
Yeah,
see New Jersey, the red brick cliffs or whatever they're called, and
yeah,
his ceiling collapsed on him.
yeah.
He's got a wonderful rent controlled apartment, passed by generations, a couple of them anyway,
Yeah,
and his landlord refused to fix it. He's like,
yeah.
no, move out.
Wow.
Move out. Just get your stuff and move out. And he's like, no, you're gonna fix it. That was like a fight for months and months. He had a hole in his
Yeah,
roof. He lived on the first floor.
that's
That's how
crazy.
they deal with things. They just don't fix anything.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
just try to get you to move out. And when you move out,
They raised the rent by
they
like,
raise the rent.
yeah,
They landlords own this building. They put a hostel in there for a few months to shock the people that hold
yeah,
out to get out. I mean, it's just that's what they do. The people
yeah,
don't matter. It's the money that does.
yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Me and my husband, when we first moved in together, we lived in a section of the city called Fishtown, which is just a little south of us.
Hmm.
Um, and when I moved there first, like it was a poor, um, what am I doing? It's a poor like white mostly neighborhood. Um, but like dogs would follow you. The stray dogs would follow you to the subway. Like that, it was that neighborhood.
Scary.
With maybe like with like and there was like some little neighborhoody parts, and then some not so nice parts, and it kind of came and went. A lot of people would say like very white trashy.
Hmm.
But whatever, it was cheap. We like moved in there. Like we put like little pots and shit outside our house, and it looked nice. And I mean, and then by the time we were looking when I got pregnant to like get a bigger place, because it was like 600 square feet, which is
Hmm.
fine for two people, but like once you had a baby to that, like I had my studio like at home, it's kind of so it's tight. So we
Yeah.
were looking for like a 3 bedroom, and you couldn't touch it. Like there was no rent for a 3 bedroom in that neighborhood that was less than. And you live in New York, so understand my sticker shock is different. That it was nothing less than like 1,500 a month, which is
Yeah.
a mortgage. I know. To you, that's ridiculous, right?
We lived in a first floor apartment in the
Yeah.
Bronx, and it was horrible. We had bars in the windows. People
Mm.
would walk by bouncing basketballs and singing rap lyrics. And it was $2,000 a month. It was horrible. Our
Well,
twins.
basketballs and rap lyrics isn't a big deal. Crackheads and
No,
meth
yeah,
addicts
totally. I mean, it was
breaking
a gorgeous
bottles.
neighborhood. It was a gorgeous neighborhood.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
Riverdale. It was such a nice neighborhood. It was real, real nice.
yeah. But the rent that me and my husband were paying for our house was 700 a month.
Yeah.
And
But
now
you
we
had
live
rabid
now.
dogs and stuff.
Well, they were not. It was just stray. It was like stray dogs. There were like blocks where like the buildings were falling down. The neighborhood itself wasn't that bad. There was a little. We were in the neighborhood. There was a little trouble along the edge of the neighborhood. And where we live now, it's again like it's a cross section of a couple neighborhoods. But our rent is $950 a month. And you saw my house. Like it's not.
It's nice.
It's a nice house. And the neighborhood's kind of mixed. If you go in a little bit more, it's a little nicer because you're in the neighborhood. We're on like a main drag, so you get a lot of cross traffic. But like I can't like this same house in our old neighborhood to rent it would be like 3 or 4 times as much.
No, well, forget about it. In New York, your house is like not exist. Your house
my house doesn't
here.
exist. That's why I live in Philadelphia. So
Yeah. I don't know.
It's crazy, man.
It's crazy. You know what's funny though? While you were telling me about the stray dogs, I was thinking about up here in the Bronx. We don't really have stray dogs. What we have is if somebody decided to get rid of animals, we have tigers and we have boa constrictors and we have cobras.
Yeah, that's fun though. That's like that makes every walk to work like living in the jungle. Like I mean,
at least like 3 times a year, I hear of like crazy New York City police officers having to wrestle wild animals out of somebody's apartments.
Yeah, I think the most that we have, like I saw raccoons. You'll see them like jumperoos. And then we have possums.
I don't know. I really don't. It's like humans are not meant to live where we're living right now. It's like we're being told, move. No. Move now. Go.
I mean, I grew up in the Pine Barrens. Like wildlife.
Oh, you're a Jersey girl.
Yes. Wildlife doesn't. I feel like that's not fair. I've lived here for 17 years. I've been in the city as long as I've been in
it doesn't wash off.
It doesn't. No,
once you got it on you, it stays. I'm sorry.
It's true. Whatever. We used to sit here. We used to call New York people, but and Philly people. I always laugh at my husband. I'm like,
there's a reputation there too. I think.
Yeah.
It's all of this entire area. It's like a dinge or something. I don't know.
It's like everyone hates each other so much. It's so funny.
This gets worse.
Yeah.
The farther east you go, I mean, Boston, forget about it.
Oh no, I've never been. I go up to MICE. I went last year, and I'm going to go this year to the Massachusetts Comic Expo.
Is that nice?
It's in Cambridge, so Cambridge is friggin' nice. It's Cambridge. There's like so many white people. It's insane. Like I've never seen so many white people. Like it was noticeable, and maybe it's because I'm from a city, but it was very noticeable. I was like, oh my god.
That's very interesting. I wanted to go to New York City Comic Con, and they only had Thursday tickets for $45. Jason was telling me about PortCon, how you could actually rent a table for $100, and I was like,
they're all different. Like you got to remember, like the Massachusetts Comic Expo, the MICE is free. Because it's for independent comics. So you're not talking about Spider-Man and Batman. It's all people, it's cartoonists. It's a cartoonist expo. And what you have in New York, which you may not know about, but you should go, is MoCA, which is the Museum of Comic something. Comic and Comic Arts. Museum of Comics and Comic Arts. They have a show of indie artists. I think it moves around every year, but that's around.
When you say indie, though, does that include people like myself who are doing writing also, like speculative fiction?
Comics. It's all comics. It's all comics. It's all comic creators and cartoonists. It's a cartoonist show. Like when you think of like the writers, the artists, and stuff like that, it's a cartoonist show.
Still cool. I still would love to go.
No, MoCA's great. I think MoCA does charge you a fee, but it's like nominal. It's like $10-15.
What part of the year is it? Do you remember?
It was March this past year. I went up.
Oh, okay.
My students got a table, and I went up to kind of help them run a table. And it's a lot of fun. They have a lot of heavy hitters in the independent comics world, in the cartoonist world. And you can get just a lot of really beautiful art books, like Riso print books and stuff like that, like just gorgeous.
See, that's what I want to see. I want to see indies on the same level as the 2 or 3 or 4 major hitters. It just doesn't make any sense that there's just Tide and I don't know if there's another one, or Pepsi and Coke. You know what I mean? I don't want to. I want to see a bunch of variety.
There's still an RC Cola. Here's the thing, though. Like what does
that's true, but
does really well, actually what's doing better in terms of comic sales than the big two is young adult and all ages comics, which are put out by like Scholastic or First Second. You hear about those less because you don't really see as many like, you know, big billion-dollar movies with them in it because it's not superhero books. It's all like stuff for teens and stuff. Or you kind of have like the Harry Potter thing where you have kids and adults are into the same book. So young adult and all ages fiction is probably the market that's growing the most in terms of comics and who's reading comics, but that's also who's getting into comics now is probably the largest growing market right now is women and young teens and stuff like that. So you have I think there's a changing of the guard going on, and people are complaining about it, and some people are all about it, and I don't know where I stand on it. I kind of sit back and I want to see where it goes, and I'm just going to keep doing the work that I like doing. And
are you talking about the gender split?
No, I'm talking more like what is selling, what's big in comics, like where does that go? Like, do all these kids who are getting into comics now, are they going to grow up and start reading and doing more adult books? Like, does what's popular in comics become broader? Because superheroes are just a genre.
Yeah.
I won't cry if the genre of superheroes is not gone, but diminished a little so that you get other genres into the book. Because I always think of comics as a literary medium. It's a storytelling medium.
Hell yeah. And I really honestly think that Disney and Marvel are doing a disservice to the whole superhero thing, because the more they mainstream it like they are, it's so boring to have. I was watching Guardians of the Galaxies. We're date nighting one of our few times to go out, and just noticed there's nothing out in the movie theaters in the middle of June, but that movie. So we went to go see it, and there was this. Did you see it?
I actually liked it. I know
it was good, right? It wasn't bad. It was good popcorn fare.
Yeah. And the guy who did that was actually, he was used to work for Troma Films, you know, Toxic Avenger and stuff. And in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, they always have the Stan Lee cameo. But in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, in the prison is Lloyd Kaufman. He's one of the prisoners in the prison, like chucking stuff at them.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, that's the guy who owns Troma, Troma Films, who puts out like the Toxic Avenger and Poultrygeist and all those like really awful porn-looking horror movies.
No.
Oh my God! How do you not know what Troma is? Oh,
I do now. I needed somebody cool to tell me. Nobody was telling me stuff like this.
It is like you want to talk about independent media. He wrote a book Lloyd Kaufman wrote a book called like Get Your Movie Made However Possible or something crazy like that. Troma movies are amazingly awful. They're amazingly awful. I think the probably their biggest hit was probably the Toxic Avenger, because it went to a cartoon and they had like toys and comics and whatever, and then it died, and they keep using the stock footage from that movie. Like there's this one scene where a car flies over something and flips over and lights on fire, and they've been using that same stock footage of that car in like multiple movies since. So if you follow Troma Films, you will be able to see that same stock car in other. It's amazing. And if you love like B movies and like shit movies, and that like is like in your heart, they're guys to watch. But you have to watch that stuff with like a bunch of people,
right?
Like, you know what I mean? Like I couldn't imagine sitting there by myself trying
to enjoy it without the laughter of all your friends.
Like I have to sit there with my husband and we have to just like laugh at each other. We and a bunch of friends of mine, for years we did this, and recently we're all like, no, I have a kid, so we can't host it anymore. We did this thing called Shit Movie Fest, and I think they still have the blog up. I think you can still go to the Shit Movie Fest blog. and we would all get together.
Well,
There'd be
you
like,
have a kid that's a baby now, but you could still do it when the kid gets older. You could call it the S asterisk 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 movie fest or something along those lines.
we would still call it shit movie fest. He would be.
And you can invite me and my kids, and we'll drive all the way from New York City, and you can introduce me to that, and that would be so cool, and I would really appreciate that. That'd be awesome.
We would like theme them too. Like we would have zombies versus ninjas. We would do cartoon ones where we would just do a whole bunch of like weird, like never heard of or B movie cartoons like Fire and Ice or the one where Debbie Harry voices that one character, like all that stuff, Rock and Roll, stuff like that, where it's like there's that weird like cult. It was like all like weird cult stuff. So yes, we did that for years, and we'll probably do another one eventually. I think that hosting that is a lot, because it used to be in our little tiny old house, like so 600 square feet. People used to sit up our stairs like it was like an amphitheater.
Oh man, do you know what would be so cool? You do it in like the same theaters that do the Rocky Horror Picture Show. You know what I mean? Those old school, old city, cold town theaters that are kind of, what do we do now? Nobody wants to come to a movie here. You just host it in there.
I mean, they have the stuff like that though in Philly. They have exhumed films, which you'll see like 35 millimeter prints of like all of these cult movies. I got to see Shogun Assassin in 35 millimeters.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And they do that in the theater. So Shit Movie Fest wasn't about that. It was about like all of us getting together and like laughing at these like crazy movies.
See, that's what I think is cool about our generation and the generation that's coming up after us and the generation that's just ahead of us, right before the baby boomers, is that we have access to all this material. You know what I mean? We have the internet, and we can do, and we didn't have to like, we don't have to save stuff. They're not in cardboard boxes in our mom's garage molting. We have access to all of this stuff. We can do like we could do marathons of He-Man cartoons if we want. You know what I mean? We
no, I hear you. You can literally stream any of that stuff now. It's pretty amazing, because I did grow up in the 90s, and I remember, I think there is a little something lost in the immediacy of everything. And that's, I'm gonna sound old for 1 minute, and I'm sorry, I'm just gonna sound like an old lady.
I'm looking forward to the statement.
Okay. So there's something lost in the immediacy of being able to find everything now. And maybe it's just my love of like finding and looking for things, like my love of like mystery and like searching stuff out. But I remember like trying to search out like okay, so the movie Legend, that it's like a Tom Cruise movie. Ridley Scott directed it from like back in like the 80s. It's like a unicorn movie.
That's another movie that I watched over and over again that it not really sucked until much later on in my life.
So there are 3 versions of that movie.
No way, I didn't know this.
There's a TV edit. Oh, I'm fucking obsessed with that movie. There's a TV edit. There's a theatrical edit that was shown in theaters, and then there's a European edit. And I remember searching out the European edit, and it took me like 2 years to find it. It has a totally different soundtrack, a totally different cut of the movie, different scenes that are in the American version. It's a completely different film. Oh, not okay. That's not true. It still has no plot, but it's a different.
It's still horrible as hell as an adult, but
yeah, I still love it. Ridley Scott, even if his movies are not the most narratively sound.
You know what? I'm gonna say this. I have not been able to. I've probably seen Blade Runner like 50 times, and every single time I see it, I wake up from some kind of fugue and say, I've never seen Blade Runner. Every single time. And I've seen the movie so many times, and every single time, did I watch that all the way through? I have no clue.
I enjoy Blade Runner. My husband really likes Blade Runner. I don't know.
I love the beginning of Blade Runner.
I don't know if he cares about. I love the beginning. I don't know if he cares about the new movie coming out so much.
I'm just tired of them rehashing old stuff like it's new or something. Yeah, don't care. Make new stuff, please.
I'm always fascinated to see what they'll do, but I always kind of reserve judgment. I'm a big reserve judgment person. I'm like, let me see it first. I reserve judgment. I mean, not like the Emoji Movie or something like that. I don't know what kind of like P went into that decision, but
oh my God, did you see it or something? Or are you
no, but
okay.
So I was on the way home. No, because there's billboards, right?
Yeah.
Coming down. So I was on the way home from my in-laws live in South Philly. And so we're going up 95 back to North Philly to go home. And my husband's driving. I'm sitting and we're going up 95. And there's this giant yellow billboard. In the middle is like a rendered poop emoji. And it said, "Meet Mr. Poop." And I'm like, holy shit, this is where we're at right now.
This is our society. That billboard expressed exactly where we are as a culture. Thank you, billboard.
I feel like there's like all kinds of metaphor going on.
Yes, I think so too. But too literal, actually, I think, that to make it literary. I mean, that's just, that's horrible. Oh my goodness.
And I don't know,
you know what it is? Honestly, it's like a Christmas present with these whole, let's rehash something from the 80s. It's like, oh, yes, please, Star Wars, let's remake, blah, blah, blah. And it's this beautiful box, and it's so bright and sparkly, and it's, oh, I wonder what's in it. I wonder what's in it. And then you open it, and you're like, oh, it sucks, or whatever the hell it's going to be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I like the Star Wars movies. Are you talking about the newer ones or the
any of them from Phantom Menace on? I love the first three. And, you know, we talked about being children in the 80s. And, you know, me, you're a little bit younger than me, but you're probably not that much younger than me. In the 80s, we watched Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, you know, the 2 Caravan of whatever, and the Star Wars special. We loved all of that stuff so much, all the toys. Yeah. And as an adult, you look back on it, and you're like, okay, I still watch it for the nostalgia. Supergirl's horrible, but still, it still resonates as this gorgeous stuff. But Phantom Menace, Jar Jar, I hate that guy. I watched A New Hope, or not A New Hope, what's it called? The Force Awakens. It was great up until Han Solo, and he's like, what is this ship?
So that was, I thought that was interesting. And me and my husband have had so many because so I'm not a big Star Wars person. I like Star Wars, but I think because my enjoyment of it is passive, I don't feel as passionately about it as everyone else. Like, I saw Star Wars, I was probably a little bit older. Because I probably saw that when I was like maybe, I mean, it's young, like 10, 11. But what I was really into, because my pop was really into it, was Star Trek.
Yeah, I love Star
Trek.
The
original Star Trek, and then the Next Generation. Like super into that stuff. I don't want to really wear my nerddom that hard, but yeah, like super.
Well, we'll do that one day. We'll have you back on, and we'll wear that nerdom.
We'll have that.
We'll
have that
nerdom down all the way onto a nub if you want to, because I'm totally off Star Trek too, and Star Wars. I love them both. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah.
I love Star Wars, but
I feel like, so I think that because I'm not, it has never like really affected me as heavily as it has some other people, that like when it's not so great, I'm like, oh, all right. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, to me, it's not the end of the world. It's like, oh, that wasn't just a fair movie. I liked the newer one. What was it?
The Rogue One
was pretty good. And I mean, I liked that it was basically like Seven Samurai.
Well, Seven Samurai. Oh, yeah, you're right.
You like get the team together on a suicide mission. So it's that was great for that. I liked that. Okay, spoiler. All right, spoiler. I liked that everybody died. I liked that. That's a weird thing to say, but I like that no one survived that.
Do you know what it is? I watched these movies, and the Phantom Menace too. When I watched Phantom Menace, I'm like, I walk out of the theater going, I just saw Star Wars, and it's amazing. When the opening crawl starts, you know, Star Wars.
Yeah, you get
I'm
like the
I
little
get a
chills,
thrill, right? I get the amazing, I'm watching Star Wars, and I walked out of Phantom Menace, you know, fangasming. And then I read the critics, and I'm like, oh, you mean it wasn't that good? The Force Awakens, I fangasm, then it wasn't that good.
No, and I think I think it's okay to just enjoy something. Like, you can like sit down and break it down in terms of, did it work narratively, or did it work structurally, or how is the visual effects, and blah 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 blah. But honestly, my opinion is, if you enjoyed that movie, then who gives a crap about anything else? I feel like I don't have to justify the stuff that I enjoy to people. Like, people feel like the need to tear apart what other people like just because they don't like it. And I think there's no reason to do that. You can just like something because you enjoyed it.
And I'm looking forward to The Last Jedi, but I'm not as excited for The Last Jedi as I was for The Force Awakens.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Can I discuss with you? We're going to go here. Me and my husband were talking about this, and I want this to go out into the world so that other people can think about this too. So,
okay.
I saw this post on Facebook that was essentially, what if The Last Jedi, Rey, so Rey, like, destroys whatever. But so Rey becomes like so crazy powerful, right? That you start to see her turn down the dark path. And I actually was talking to my husband about this. Like, wouldn't it be great if like she became so powerful, right? Like she trained, the whole thing's gonna be just her and Luke training, so who gives a crap? But she became so powerful that like people became scared of her. And what had to happen in this third movie was that like she actually turned to the dark side, and the whole third movie is essentially Finn and Kylo Ren have to team up to stop her.
I think Luke is the last Jedi. And that he's the balancing of the Force, so he's now a melding of the dark.
No, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I think that's not going to happen, but it would be amazing.
I don't think there's any such thing as dark and light anymore. So she could be as powerful as she wants to be, but as long as she can balance both the dark and the light, it doesn't really matter. Like good versus evil.
But what I was saying is like, what if she turned evil? What if she went basically flip sides, and what's his face still got a hold of her and Kylo was out, and so him and Finn have to basically team up to stop her from destroying the universe.
What's his face? Snoke,
right?
Snoke. I'm wondering who Snoke is. Bob.
He's Andy Serkis. No, I'm sorry.
No. I'm curious who Snoke is. I'm thinking he's Tarkin. That's who I'm thinking. And
which one?
I fangasm all about it. I just love the whole lore. And you know what it is that's so cool to me is that you can build up these theories.
Yeah.
You watch a 2-hour movie and you can have like a 24-hour discussion about what you just saw.
Yeah.
And that to me is amazing. You can write hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of reams of paper worth of books over characters in these movies that are less than 12 hours long.
Yeah.
That just amazes me. And that's the stupid guy in San Francisco, California, who said, you know what would be cool? I'm going to make a samurai movie.
Yeah, Buck Roger. I'm going
to make something else afterward. No, you're not, buddy. Your entire life is going to be geared to that dumb movie.
He said I'm going to make a Buck Rogers samurai movie, and then I'm going to make a bunch of toys.
Accidentally became a billionaire in the process.
And I think not accidentally. I think George Lucas is kind of clever, like stupid like a fox, in the sense that I think he knew that toys were where it was at.
I think he saw the writing on the wall. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, how could he, honestly? I mean, come on. How could you do that? He made American Graffiti first. Where is Star Wars and all of what he made prior to making Star Wars? I don't see this dude like coming up with this.
I do. I think
so.
That, yeah, man. I mean, American Graffiti feels like a college venture. You know what I mean? Like, you're just out of college, just trying to do my serious film, right?
What was the other science fiction one? 11 THX or 11 something?
Oh yeah. I actually never saw that one.
I tried to watch it. It was horrible. It wasn't very good. It wasn't enthralling at all.
He also did Willow. I love Willow.
Willow was genius, right? But that was after the fact.
Yeah, that was after Star Wars. But I think it's still one of my favorite fantasy movies as Willow.
I talk to people all the time about this thing, this magical spark that happens. We even talked about it a little bit, starting out. How do you, catch the eye of somebody? How do you catch the eye of millions of people? And, this dude got the eye of all these people, and for decades now.
Well, it does also help to have like a major release of your film.
Well, that's true, but even the studio was like, dude, what do you have? This is nothing. This is crap.
I know, but he also had Steven Spielberg was his pal, and I know it's before Spielberg was Spielberg, but...
Yeah, well, he did Jaws, right? And Jaws even wasn't like an accident. So I mean, I don't know. And he was with Francis Ford Coppola doing Apocalypse Now. He was on the film set doing stuff with that. So I mean, obviously he's in that circle of really great filmmakers in the 70s.
And you're making connections, and all you need to do is to convince the right guy. You know what I mean? To give you the money. That's all movies are. I mean, my husband works for film and television. He does locations work, so he sees a lot more behind the scenes than you or I ever will. And a lot of movies is just like getting the funds. And if you can get the funds, you make your movie.
So he's George Lucas, basically. I mean, if he had a script, he just basically pass it on to somebody.
No, that's not. My husband does locations work.
No, I'm saying like back in the 70s, Francis Ford Coppola had George Lucas on set and wherever they filmed, Apocalypse Now, he was working on that set with that director doing whatever he was doing.
Yeah, you have no idea what those conversations were like.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like he could, you don't know who you're schmoozing. You don't know who you're talking to. I think that if you're talking about how do I catch the attention of people with money,
I want to know how you catch that lightning. You know what I mean? How do you get a $1 billion check from Disney when you're 60 some odd 70 years old?
Oh, well, no, yeah, but that's
and you do too. I mean, everybody does. I mean, we've got kids and a mortgage, and we're planning for the future. How do you get that big fat check?
I mean, I think a lot of it, I think, is right place at the right, putting yourself at the right place at the right time. Like you're working for Francis Ford Coppola in your 20s, or you go to the right party and talk to the right person. I'm not saying like.
It's so funny though, man. This guy he had this wife, right? Mm-hmm. And I've heard this story recently. He had this genius wife, this editor, who helped him with Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, and maybe even potentially Return of the Jedi. She helped guide him, pushing him along the way. Mm-hmm. No George this, no George this, yes George this, yes George this, and now he has this genius franchise, right? Mm-hmm. They get divorced. Mm-hmm. He starts out with the prequel. Boom, he fails. I mean, yeah, granted, he makes a lot of money, but they're not quality work. Yeah. George Lucas by himself, without that genius wife, gets 50% of the work done. Couple that with Stephen King, who, with Tabitha King, has managed to put $400 million together, and every single time he publishes a novel, success, home run, boom, 40 novels out of the park. Mm-hmm. He's honored her throughout the same length of career. Yeah. I don't know, there's connection there. There's a partnership. There's an honor. You know what I mean?
Well, I think when you work as a creative, even if you're not necessarily, Stephen King, there's still a contract going in with whoever you're with, your significant other, however you want to put that, is they kind of understand, like, even if they're not directly involved in your work, like, there's still a lot of stuff that goes into that in terms of working together on something.
Do you have a creative partner that you work with on a regular? Do you work with your husband? Like second set of eyes type of thing?
Yes. So I'll give him stuff when it's in after I've written it. Like after I've done sort of my first pass, I'll give him so I don't write like you would write, like you type stuff out, right? I write in thumbnails. I essentially draw my pages. If you want, I'll send you one. I draw my pages and write everything out by hand.
I checked out your Instagram. I actually saw you working at a bar, and then I saw you work by hand too, don't you?
Well, that was a friend of mine. But yeah, if you go further down on my Instagram, I have oh look, I'm at my computer. I can.
Yeah, send me all types of stuff. It's going to take me a few days to edit this one because I'm so behind. It's so funny how they rack up.
It's cool, man. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, we chatted for a long time about bullshit, so you might want to
I'm going to keep it all. It's all good. All right, I don't While you're messing around with your Instagram, let me get back to my what I was going to mention about Guardians of the Galaxies.
Oh yeah.
When they're crashing into the forest, and the ship is falling apart around them. Mm-hmm. Nothing happens to any of those characters. None of them get bruised. None of them get cut up. No broken bones. No concussions. They land on this foreign planet. They all get up, make jokes, and they walk away. Yeah, there's no danger to anything. Yeah. Anything. Nothing happens to nobody.
But that's that world. That's why I'm not a big fan of superhero comics, because they're like soap operas. No one dies.
Nothing happens to anybody, exactly. And if something does happen, like I read through Spider-Man because I love Spider-Man. Spider-Man is my favorite superhero, right? Yeah. When something happens to Spider-Man or a Spider-Man villain, you can always expect him to recover and the superhero to get out of jail or prison or something.
But you got to remember, those are series with no definite end. Those books have been going on for decades. That's why you have so many reboots, and that's why you have so many alternate universes, and then they'll destroy the universe, start a new universe. You know what I mean? That's why they have those things, and they build them as events to keep interest and all that stuff. And that's actually probably why I've never been into superhero books because I like to read. I've always liked to read, and I always enjoyed comics and graphic novels. But I don't want to read something until the end of time.
Yeah, exactly. And there'll always be a Spider-Man. There's going to be another Spider-Man. There's going to be this, the Ultimate and the Avenging and whatever you have you.
Yeah.
And I want to see the heat come from a different direction. And I like the idea of indie comics putting that heat on Marvel, actually. I'd like to see Marvel, stop being Marvel or something. I don't know what I want. What do I want? Tell me as a professional, what do I want?
I think it's fine for Marvel to just keep being Marvel. They have been doing the same thing forever, and they are just, I guess, they want to just own all this stuff and just be a media company, right? They have the movies, they have the
media.
Books.
They don't want to be comics anymore. They want to be television, they want to be movies, and they want to be graphic arts.
Right. So actually here, I'm going to send you here you go, Voyage of, I'm just going to email it to you because my computer's super slow. So I'm going to send you, and don't publish this anywhere, but you can look at it if you want. You can publish, I guess, the thumbnails themselves. But I'm going to attach a PDF of what I send to the comic company. And what it is it's the script I send when I have like an editor, I'm working on a licensed product. So it's the script, but also the thumbnails. And actually what I end up writing is the thumbnails. And then I take my thumbnails, and if I have to write a script for somebody, I'll type the script up. That's how I work, which is weird and backwards. But when I'm just working for me, I don't even bother typing anything up. I just work totally. Come on, computer. Okay, so my computer's from 2008, and me and my computer do glorious battle every day.
That's horrible.
I should get a new one, but there's a part of me that feels like...
I rebuilt my computer just so I can play with Photoshop because I'm addicted to it.
Oh, it runs fine. It runs Photoshop fine. I can still do all my work. Like that's not a problem yet. It was a tough little system to begin with, but sorry, my throat's very dry. But it's just a little slow. Enough updates and stuff. It's also an Apple, so that limits how much
an Apple.
Yeah, it's rebuilding.
Yeah, I'm PC completely, which I guess means I'm Windows. I tried to go Linux for a while, but I just got so upset by the limiting software that I could use and play with in games and whatever, which is ironic, man. I can't even play any games anymore because I have no time.
Yeah, I don't game at all. I never really did. I had like a PlayStation for a while, and I got really into Final Fantasy, and then
Final Fantasy what? 7?
10. I got really into 10 and 10.5 because the girls could change clothes. That was fun. And I got to I could build each one up, and I built up all their outfits, and I built up them so strong. So I used to just knock stuff down one at a time. Because whenever I played those RPG games, I would live in a level until I leveled up my characters so hard that when I went to the next level, I just annihilated everything.
Yeah.
And I would do that until I could not annihilate everything anymore. And then I would stay in that level and build all the characters and all their accessories up as much as I could.
Role-playing games were my poison too. I loved EverQuest and WoW, World of Warcraft.
So much. A friend of mine is really into WoW, and another buddy of mine does artwork for Blizzard.
It's amazing that. I think World of Warcraft killed themselves this last expansion. For me and my wife, anyway. I got her into it, and we just we couldn't play together anymore.
Yeah, I'm a little more. I feel like I'm a little more limited there because I never played World of Warcraft. So to me, here I can send you original stuff. This is it's a Photoshop document.
So, in terms of our conversation, in terms of your career, what do you think you see for the future for yourself? You're going to teach, obviously. You're going to continue to mold young minds. Maybe I've already asked you a version of this question already, but what do you see yourself doing? Are you going to continue to, seek out people like Jason Abbott and do cover art for him, or are you going to? Let me let you answer the question.
I'm pushing my work more and more into children's illustration. Just because I enjoy doing children's illustration.
That's interesting.
This is Christine. What are you going to be in 10 years? To seek out new life, new civilizations.
Well, children's books are big. Honestly, many people, and I would recommend it as well. If you could draw and you could write, produce children's books. Because that's the only physical thing that you actually need.
And I even still like the collaborative process of just doing stuff with a writer. I don't necessarily need to always be. Okay. I'm trying to find stuff for you, but it's like a nightmare in here.
Is this stuff that I'll be able to use in the notes or for graphics?
You might be able to use some of the pictures for graphics. I just wanted to show you my writing process, but
I would love to see the writing process, definitely, for nothing more than just edify myself.
Yeah, I got rid of a bunch of stuff out of here. All right, I'll find it later for you.
No problem.
I don't want to deal with it now. I'll send you some writing stuff later. But and I want to still do my own work. I still keep meaning to. I mean, I have that Orcs comic that I update every now and again. I love doing my shorts, my fantasy shorts. I have ideas for longer series, but none of them are at a place where I feel comfortable talking about them. I'm still doing like character design work and feeling the world out. But I don't know, I just want to keep drawing, get better at drawing. I never look that far ahead.
Yeah.
It's not a good way to be. But I don't know, people make plans and God laughs and all that shit. Like, I don't necessarily believe in a higher power, but I also don't believe that the universe won't fuck with me if I try too hard.
Well, we tried to have a conversation about conspiracies and whatever. The universe laughed at us.
Right. The universe it's the aliens directly. They're like, the conspiracy
10,000-year-old pyramids just said no.
Right. Drop your connection immediately.
No, you will talk about drawing and comics. That's what we're here for. And gentrification.
Yeah.
You can talk about gentrification. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're like, okay, that's fine.
That's what you can talk about. That's the only conspiracy. Are there aliens? Do you think about alien life?
Oh, do I think that there are aliens?
Yeah,
I think,
not Mexicans or anything like that. But.
No, I understand. Not foreign human beings. You mean extraterrestrials?
Yes.
I think that the universe is huge. I'm sure there's the existence of something. I don't know if something is visiting us, but I think it's insane to think that there's not life elsewhere in the universe. I think it's too big of a place to limit it to just us. If it is us, it's lonely as shit. Like I don't like that idea. Like, I'd like to think that even after humanity blows itself up, there's going to be like a little amoeba somewhere on another planet that's going to figure out how to like make rockets.
Do the same thing we did.
Yeah, no, I want that little amoeba to make a rocket and come to Earth and learn a lesson from our self-destructive nature.
It's weird to think that this all could just disappear. All the effort that we put forth can just eventually just be gone.
At one point, we didn't exist.
Yeah, that's true.
And at some other point, we won't exist again.
That's very true. Do you ever see that? That Discovery series that showed the passage of time and what we have constructed disappearing over a period of like millennia? This is the Empire State Building slowly evaporating into the sands.
I'm like a crazy. I'm not like a nihilist, like like Big Lebowski nihilist. But I do. So one of my favorite parts of any book is the end of the time. After the whole, he goes and it's like, the people above ground and below ground, whatever. At the end of the time machine, he takes the time machine to the end of time on Earth. And it's just like a giant, sun, because the sun's slowly exploding. And then like this black ocean and weird crab creatures. And I always thought that was the most weirdly like peaceful and disturbing scene ever written, ever committed to paper. It's probably one of the few things I've ever read that I like meditate on. Like, that's an amazing thing to think about, like the end of time.
That's very interesting.
How nothing we do really matters.
Now I want to write a scene about the end of Earth and the end of the sun. I've never written one before. Now I really want to write one. And I've got an opportunity to write one too, because I'm writing a story about the sun. So maybe I will.
Yeah, and it's just strange.
What is it that the Earth is going to look like when the sun expands? Because there will be something here that will be eaten up by the sun, right? I mean, I've never read H.G. Wells, honestly.
Maybe not, because, oh, really? Like War of the Worlds?
Never.
Or no?
Now,
Oh,
I've seen obviously World of Wars,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Tom Cruise and the original one,
Yeah,
and
no,
listened to the play.
the Time Machine's probably one of my favorite of his.
And I've seen the movie, obviously, too, with
Yeah,
horrible,
no,
horrible adaptation, and the one that came out in like the early 2000s that was not worth my time. But
yeah, no, it's a really crazy. It's a really crazy thing. I mean, scientifically, what would happen? Like, we would probably lose our atmosphere first before anything was really swallowed by the sun. But just the image of that was always super like disturbing, but weirdly peaceful. And this is very strange. I don't know. It's a really strange thing to kind of sit and think about.
I'm very judgy. I guess you're not, though, when it comes to old speculative stuff. When it comes to like translations of
Mm-hmm.
fiction from another language, I don't trust it. Like
Okay.
the original author obviously had intentions that will never translate to my language.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm never going to get the full intention of what he meant. And
Mm-hmm.
then old speculative fiction, I'm like, dude, I know you have no clue what you're talking about because you're not able to research modern scientific standards. So
Right.
go away. And H.G. Wells, or like even who wrote, Earth to the Moon.
Do you mean like Bradbury and stuff like that?
Even, but he wrote more. Yeah, I wish I can get into it. I just don't trust their science.
Oh, but that's so. When you
It's
talk about
unfortunate. What? Go ahead.
old science fiction, I like to read it almost like I would read a fan. It's the suspension of disbelief, and at the end of the
Yes.
day, if you can't suspend your disbelief, then you can't read any of that shit.
Yeah.
You can't read Lovecraft, you can't read Machen, you
Well,
can't.
no, that's different though, because that's
No,
fantasy. That's
no,
fantasy.
but so is Wells. Science
Yeah, I
fiction is still
guess.
fantasy. It's still a fantasy.
Yeah, that's true. You can't. I
So
guess you couldn't read Lovecraft, and I was listening to the what's it called, The Mountain of Madness or something like that. It was
yeah.
an audiobook on YouTube, and he really delves deep into the science.
Yeah, yeah,
He delves deep.
I have mixed feelings on Lovecraft. I enjoy some of his stuff. Probably my favorite thing of his is this really short. Let me just make sure I'm getting the title right.
Mountains of Madness.
It's What the Moon Sees.
What the Moon Sees?
What the Moon Sees. It's like a page and a half, and it's more like a by Lovecraft. Some other woman wrote a thing called What the Moon Sees, but it's like a short story. It's What the Moon Brings. That's what it is. What the Moon Brings. It's probably my favorite short of his because it's just like a meditation on how the night is transformed by the moonlight. And it's kind of like a look into this guy's brain about like how moonlight, which most people think of as romantic and soft and beautiful, just makes everything fucking terrifying to him.
Yeah.
So it's kind of amazing. But a lot of Lovecraft stuff is, and maybe he's a genius for doing this, but a lot of his descriptions are something, the most horrible thing that could never be more horrible than this horribleness. Like, it's like there's no real, you don't ever know what he's looking at. And maybe that's the smarter thing because it leaves your brain to imagine. But after a while, you're kind of like, dude, I feel like you're copping out on me here, pal. So I've always been a bigger Machen fan in terms of like that old kind of horror fantasy folk horror thing. Like the Great God Pan. I think it's. Hold on, let me make sure I'm giving you the right titles of stuff. Yeah, Arthur Machen. He just has a bunch of really great occulty horror fiction if you're into that stuff. I enjoy that stuff probably because
I want to be so badly, and then I find myself having no time. I want to be.
I'll say his stuff is really short. Like a lot of novellas. So I mean, maybe because I spend a lot of time on public transit, I read through a lot of short
Helps,
stories.
doesn't it?
Yeah, so I read through a lot of like short stuff, but and even like I usually try to, before I go to bed, try to get a few chapters into a book, whatever I'm reading that's long. So, are you reading anything good right now? Like,
I'm planning on doing my second podcast is called Mirage, speculating on speculative fiction. So I'm doing a episode on Mitch Albom
okay.
later on this month. So I'm trying to read through all of his works. He doesn't have a very, very big bibliography. So I'm reading Telephone Calls from Heaven.
Okay.
Halfway through it right now. I have no flipping time.
Yeah.
So it's taking me forever. I don't even think it's that thick of a novel either. So it's like,
yeah, it's tough with kids. I'll say that. It I think my reading has gone down a lot. But
I have a thing for death fantasies. I really enjoy them a lot.
For what fantasies?
Death fantasies, like what dreams may come, things like that.
Okay, I got you. That I was like, oh, okay, okay, I got you. That's fine. That makes more sense.
Like, I like near-death experiences and things like that. I like writing about the afterlife, and just like the whole idea of more.
Yeah,
Even though I have my doubts, I still love the idea of more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of my short comics, especially the silent ones, have to do with afterlives and fantastic stuff and another life, because I don't believe in any of that stuff. And I like the concept of it. So it's not even like I have my doubts. Like, I'm fairly sure no. I want to be wrong. Don't get me wrong.
It's interesting. From somebody who, you don't believe whatever, you have still, it's fun to play with.
Yeah.
The concept of something.
I think if because you don't really, because you're not stuck in what I guess I would call
a dogma
or like a religious doctrine. It lets you sort of explore various thoughts on the idea, whether it's like you want to go more esoteric or more like mythological in terms of, like, I always think like the Bible and Judeo-Christian beliefs to be more mythology than necessarily like that esoteric.
Oh, totally.
Like,
and you could back it all the way up to like the sun gods of Egypt. I saw a documentary on YouTube about that, and that really stuck. Now, like 5 or 6 years ago, 10 years ago more.
I feel like it interests me in the same way that like I like folklore, I like mythology, I like conspiracy theories, I like, weird speculative stuff. I enjoy all that stuff because I think it's all kind of the same idea. Mankind's constant look for something beyond ourselves, whether it's the afterlife or aliens or Ancient Aliens. I love that series. Ancient Aliens was hilarious.
For me, you know what it is? So I like this concept of sentience, this thing that we have inside ourselves, this seed of you or me, this thing that we just carry around in us that we can't really locate. Is it our brain? Is it our stomach? Is it our chest? Where are we? Right. What happens to that thing? Does our brain rot? We rot. But does it rot? Does it exist elsewhere? And a lot of my fiction lately comes from the definition of that. Yeah. Does the sun have it? I mean, obviously, if it's chemical based, these chemicals don't just solely exist in me. Right. They came from the sun. They came from the explosion that we may identify as the Big Bang. What is that explosion? What other, permutation do these chemicals have? Where else do they exist? So I've been kind of writing about, God being the sun or God being something else. And, is the sentience in the universe or something? Do you go back to it? Are we blah, 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 blah? Yeah. So, I like these death fantasies for that. I mean, so I'm exploring Mitch Albom, and we're going to do a podcast on that. So that's what I'm reading right now. And then also there's a really great nonfiction book called Sapiens. I'm reading that as well, kind of exploring who we have been and who we've connected with as humans throughout the last few million years. Our ancestors, Neanderthals, and all the other, Homo, whatever they've been. Homo people.
Homo erectus and all that.
Homo, Sapiens, erectus, whatever they've been. There's like 8 of them, and we've all been genetically connected, and they may have been mergings or murders and just horrible things or great things. And
we all look to our past, we look to our future. Human beings are weird things. We're weird creatures.
This planet's been an amazing spaceship circling the
It's an amazing spaceship.
just circling the sun for the last billion years. And God, all the
Yeah.
life that's been on it. It's been amazing. And you know what else has been amazing? This
This has been a
flipping
really long conversation.
Oh my goodness, it's been wonderful. We've been all over the place too.
I was gonna say I gotta get back to work at 2:30.
I'm just you know what has happened? My stupid clock is actually stopped. Oh no, it's gone.
Okay.
Hour and 37 minutes is what we've been on this call for, or actually since I started this clock.
Yeah.
Man, thank you so much. I really appreciate talking with me.
It was a really long conversation. It's really good. No, it was fun. It's nice to like speak to other human beings during my day since it's summer, so I'm alone all day, all week, or I'm like, with my son or my husband, and I love those guys, but I see them every day. So, it's nice to talk to other people.
Well, thank you so much. What are you reading? Anything real quick? I have like a couple questions and I'll get you off.
Yeah. So right now I am, because I just bought it and I'm a big fan. I'm reading Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman.
Is that good? I've heard that's fantastic.
Yeah, I just started, so I'm like a chapter in. So yes, it's like the first chapter, but that was like my newer start this week. So yeah,
You wrote that on a lark, and it's like #1 bestseller forever.
Oh, well, yeah, definitely. But I was always been a big fan of Norse mythology since I was a kid, being like part Danish and stuff. And my dad was always into it, so I know a lot about it, and I'm always interested in how he filters it, because that's obviously big in his like Sandman series and stuff like that, and little mentions of it come up here and there in other works of his. So I enjoy the way the man writes. I think has a beautiful fairy tale quality to it, even if it's like the driest subject in the world.
American Gods is the only book I've actually read of his. I loved it. Sucked me all the way through. I'm gonna have to read Norse mythology though. I'm very interested.
And actually, Good Omens, which he wrote with Terry Pratchett, is very good.
I tried to read it. I didn't like it.
Oh no, I really liked Good Omens. Yeah,
I thought it was more fairy tale-ish and geared towards a younger audience. Maybe that's a Terry Pratchett though, who I unfortunately don't enjoy. I
think Terry Pratchett, you have to get into certain books first before you get into other series. I don't know. I liked Good Omens. I thought it was, but I like fairy tales, and I can enjoy, I guess, that stuff.
It all really depends on the time too. I'll give him another shot. Next question, last question, I promise you.
Yeah.
I am getting into the arts, but my family wants me to become a lawyer. Talk me into becoming an artist.
No, become a lawyer.
Become a lawyer? Oh man.
Pay for your parents' retirement and become a lawyer. No, if you really want to go into the arts, make sure, and I'm not going to say this how to talk to your parents, because if you can answer this question, then it doesn't fucking matter what they say. If you really want to go into the arts, make sure you love it, because it will consume your entire life, and you have to build your whole life around it, and it requires a lot of personal financial sacrifice. So good luck. And do it if you love it, but don't do it because you think you may like it. If you're not sure, go to community college and see how you feel. Don't spend $80,000 in an art school because maybe you like to draw once in a while.
And there's a beautiful answer, but it's wrong. The correct answer actually is there are way too many lawyers.
There are way too many lawyers, but not enough good ones. If you want to be a lawyer, you can always become like a public defendant and really help a lot of people. I don't even know
if that makes you a good lawyer. Actually, those people are pretty horrible too. Out for like whatever reason. I don't even know why they're actually doing what they're doing.
Public defendants are given to people who can't afford a lawyer.
Yeah, but they're not altruists. They like do it for personal gain, don't they? Aren't they political appointees?
No, you work for
pittance.
You work for pittance, and you work for the state. Very underfunded and overworked. Those people are helping to represent people who can't afford their own representation. And just because someone is in jail doesn't mean that they necessarily should be there. They're could be wrongly arrested. They could have like overblown charges against them. Public defendants, I know people like to give lawyers a bad rap, but those people do difficult work under difficult circumstances. And I don't know, man. Not every lawyer has to be a jerk. If you want to be a lawyer, just don't be a dick.
Hey, it's Will Wheaton's law. Everything comes back around to the Will Wheaton's law.
It's true. Just don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Christine, thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation. I think it's one of my longest ones, too. It was really enjoyable.
I can really talk, so there you go. All right, have a good one, man.
You as well. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye.
And that was Christine Larsen. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. I have more coming up this week. Follow me on Twitter, BRYAIELLO, for updates on my writing, for updates on the show and the podcast, and all that good, happy stuff. BrianEYellow.com is my website. I'm constantly tweeting out art for people to follow, things of that nature. I look forward to interacting with all of you. And as always, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Goodbye.